Hey, what's up, family? Welcome to the Fill Your Cup podcast. I'm your host, Ricardo Terrell, and my mission is to inspire one soul at a time to ultimately inspire the world. Today, I have a very unique individual who has come to the platform to share his story, his struggle victories, and hopefully, you guys can gain something from this conversation. And I would always tell you, if it's not for you, put it in your toolbox so that you can pass it along to someone else down the line. But if it is for you, if you're resonating with anything from this conversation, I pray that you receive breakthrough and you become the best version of yourself on the other side of this recording. So without further ado, I will introduce my first guest, Mr. Nick Williams.
How you guys doing? I appreciate you for having me, and I'm just excited to be here.
Yes, sir, 1,000%. Well, I know you and we were just talking for an hour before the audio even started. But today, I really want to give you an opportunity to share your story in a way that maybe you've never been able to before. And I know that I'm going to learn a lot of new things about you that I don't personally know, right? And it's going to be an opportunity for you to just speak from the heart. And it may be some tears that come from the conversation. It'll be some laughter. But more than anything, I just want you to let people know who you are. And I like to start off with getting people to understand who you are first, because once they know the root of Nick, they'll be able to place a profound respect for you and value you more than they may currently do, because a lot of people listening to this may not even know who you are, what you look like, right? So let's paint a picture for them. And I really want to know who you are at the root, right? Let's start from the beginning. Walk me through your upbringing, some pivotal things that you feel have shaped and molded you to become the man you are today.
So just starting off, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, born and raised, and kind of got the typical, product of the environment type story. A lot of us grew up in a situation to where we were raised with a single mom. The oldest of two kids. Got a little sister, which I really love, man. I really love my sister. She's really great. Love my mom as well, too. For a couple of years, I actually had my stepdad in my life for a while. And really great guy. Like, he's somebody that I actually respect, and I know that to this day I probably could call him and we have a great conversation. But from when I was younger, I was actually told that he was my dad. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is my dad. But I didn't understand that my mom had already had me before he even came into the picture.
Correct.
So that's all I knew. So I guess he came into my life around when I was like 4 years old. So in my mind, that was my dad.
Yeah.
Nobody told me nothing differently. And when I was like 10 years old, 10 or 11, my uncle just put me to the side and he was like, that's not your dad, right? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I was a part of the family and, I knew everybody, but basically where I'm hitting on is the fact that when that day happened, it kind of was like an identity crisis type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dang, where do I belong? And I don't know if anybody ever been through that type of situation or anything like that, but it kind of made me feel like, dang, like, who am I for real? Like, where do I come from? Like, it just kind of made me, I don't know, it kind of just threw me off as far as identity-wise, but because I don't know if, like, people who had divorces and they were a part of divorces and then they go through they like, dang, I was just a part of this,
right?
Then this happened, and and not to drag that along, but basically he taught me about sports, basketball. He was a provider. Like, I was always out scrapping with him and everything. Real great guy. But things didn't work out with him and my mom. But after that, just living in a house with my mom, my sister, my grandma, and just I had hoop dreams. I wanted to be a hooper, and things didn't work out like that. But that's basically kind of a little bit of my story. I could go deeper if that's fine, but
absolutely.
Okay. Well, just growing up in Kansas City, it's either you play sports or you in the streets.
Yeah.
you know. And so just growing up around that environment, I wasn't the street guy at all. Like that wasn't me, you know. Like I was the person that when you told don't cross that stop sign, you know, play from stop sign to stop sign. I didn't cross that stop sign, you know. Like, I mean, I was kind of like a nerdy type guy, and it kind of made me feel like an outcast. Because a lot of family members, you know, that I was actually around, a lot of them were, you know, in the streets or, you know, they were just different, and I was looked at a little bit differently. So I kind of felt like an outcast, like I didn't really fit in nowhere. And I had a real great relationship with my uncle, and my uncle used to always make me feel like I was a part of, you know, like I was special, even though I wasn't doing none of that stuff. You know, my uncle wasn't, you know, he wasn't, you know, how can I say this? He wasn't perfect. He wasn't perfect at all. He was 12 years older than me. We seen him as like a big brother.
Right.
And he was a big pivotal. He was a big impact on my life, you know, because he actually kept me away from that stuff. Like he didn't want me to be associated with that, even though, you know, that probably was what he was associated with, but he didn't want me to be a part of that. And he actually was murdered in 2015. And that really took something out of me because, you know, like, that was my guy, man. You know what I mean? That was, you know, somebody I really love, I really respected, and I really, you know, love being around. And it messed me up. And we had prior deaths in our family as well, too. My auntie was murdered in 2004. So I had a lot of people, friends and stuff I knew that were murdered and everything. And so after a while, like, death started to become normal to me. And I didn't understand how I wasn't grieving. Wow. Like I wasn't taking time to grieve because, you know, the world moves so fast.
Yeah.
And so I took it out. I took all my pain out I used drugs to, you know, try to numb my pain. And it got real bad. I got really, really deep into drugs after my uncle was murdered, and because I didn't know where else to go. My mom, you know, she was dealing with this, dealing with that. I mean, just, you know, the world, it don't stop moving. When people, you know, pass away, the world don't stop moving. And I feel like I never really sat down and never really had nobody like, hey, man, you know, like, how you feeling, you know? So I just took it out on drugs, and I was doing drugs for like 8 years. And it really was an impactful time in my life because I just, you know, ran across certain situations and saw certain things, and that really it shaped and molded me and made me realize, like, man, I'm better than this.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that, like, you are who you hang around. I was hanging around, you know, people that wasn't really being productive, or, you know, I was just looking for the love. You know, and so, I mean, a lot of people know when it comes to the streets and stuff, yeah, you'll get a lot of love out there and everything, but it's not what you need, because the consequences of what's going on behind the scenes can affect you, even if you're not really even a part of it. And just seeing a lot of that stuff, really, it changed me. It changed me a lot. And, man, like, being in a situation now where, you know, we're around different people, and you know the type of environments and stuff that we're around now, people we're around now, it blew my mind that people like that are out there.
Absolutely.
Even being around you, you know, like, getting to meet you and everything, and just your spirit, your energy, who you are as a person, and just your mindset and how you treat other people around you. A lot of people are not used to that.
Right. It's actually viewed as weird to society because everyone is so negative and they're so self-centered. So when you come around with a smile, you're willing to shake somebody's hand, you give somebody a compliment, they may think you're trying to talk to them in a more intimate way, right? When naturally you're just being nice. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And to touch on a couple other things that you stated, man, and it actually kind of was getting ready to bring me to tears when you talked about your uncle getting murdered in 2015, because I had an uncle of mine, like my first uncle. I have an uncle that's similar to yours when you talked about the age difference, right? But my uncle was 8 years older than me. This uncle was still alive, but the one who passed away was the uncle to me that really showed me the importance of protecting your family. You know, like, if anybody in the family had an issue, he was the one to call, right? He was going to bounce out for you. You know, he was going, he was willing to go to war over any family member that he had, and he was so loved. And when I spoke at his funeral, it was actually a challenging time because his, if I'm not mistaken, his funeral was the same day as Kingston's birthday, right? And I didn't know if I wanted to expose my son to what death was or death is that early, because at the time he was 6 years old, and I was questioning it, like, should I go to the funeral? Should I skip that? Because I don't like seeing people that I love in that way, in that box, right? Because my grandpa had passed in 2011, 2010, 2011, me going into the seventh grade. And that was the first person that was closest to me that had passed away. So like, I didn't really know I didn't know how to handle death, right? But whenever my uncle passed, it just hit me because to give you a visual, I'm laying in the bed doing my nightly routine with Kingston in his bed. We're praying together. We're speaking affirmations, reflecting on the day. And I get a call from my sister, and she's just bawling. And the way she was crying, Nick, I just knew something bad had happened. And she was like, they killed my uncle. They killed my uncle. They killed my uncle. And I'm like, who? She said, Uncle Aaron. And when she said the name, my heart sank because one ear, I'm on the phone with her, and in my right arm, I'm cuddling my son, and I just squeezed him tighter, right? Because when you come from an environment like that, where there's gang activity, drugs being involved, like, there's only a few different roads that's going to lead down, you know? And we're actually told that growing up, it's like, you go to jail or you die. You get killed, right? And unfortunately, that ended up transpiring, man. And the last time I seen my uncle before he passed, we were at Octapharma Plasma in Independence, and he was on the bed donating. And I'm in line trying to sign up to become a new donor. And I seen him, and he was like, nephew. And he used to say it just like that, man. And I love this man. Like, this heart that I got around my neck right now was gifted to his nephews and nieces. And it says, your wings were ready, but our hearts were not. Your wings were ready, but our hearts were not. And I just wanted to ask you about that situation with your uncle specifically. Like, what deep impact did he have on you? I know you guys were close, right? But what deep impact did he have on you? And I know you mentioned that you turned to drugs shortly after that. How old were you around that time period?
So around that time, this was 2015. So this is about almost 10 years ago. So yeah, I was about 2021.
2021.
Yeah, I was just I dropped out of college because I didn't know myself. You remember we were just having a conversation about, and that was a really good question. I'm gonna definitely go, but we were kind of talking about high school times, and we were talking about being in a position to where we kind of put the things that we liked that made us who we were to the side to kind of fit in with the crowd in school and everything.
Yeah.
I feel like when I graduated high school and went to college and everything, I didn't know myself, and that pulled me away, from college. But the impact that my uncle always had on me was when I got around him, he always reminded me who I was and who I wasn't. And so that's one thing that I really appreciated about him is that, like, hey man, you see them people over there, you don't hang with them.
Yeah.
That's not you. And it'd be times where I would go over there and hang,
Anyway.
And it's not, it's just, being young and dumb because you grew up with certain people that, we got 300 cousins that really friends and everything. And so you feel like, man, they're my people, but he saw something that I didn't see. And so he was kind of just like, the person leading the pack, like, hey, this ain't the place you want to go. This ain't what you want to do. Even though, I'm probably, living a certain life, that don't mean this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
And so he always just reminded me who I was and who I wasn't. And just the impact far as, he was he was really creative. And that's one thing I love about my uncle is he wasn't scared to be creative. And so one thing that I always, I think I got from him the most was just never be afraid of, what makes you you. Mm. And I didn't even understand that, you know. And that's one thing that when I really sat down, and it's crazy because it took me probably about like an hour ago. I mean, 2 hours ago before I came over here, I really been getting in the habit of just sitting down and rethinking my life and rethinking about certain situations. But that was one of the biggest things that I realized was that, he always, brought me back to reality. Mm. So whatever fantasy or whatever, false philosophy that the world gave me, he always would be like, he would see something and just be like, nah, come back down. Because, like I know where that's headed. I know where that's going. And so that was kind of like the biggest impact that he had on me. Like, yeah, he probably didn't have all the answers, but he made certain mistakes and seen people make certain mistakes before, before I was even going to encounter him. And he would just tell me, because I feel like with the generation nowadays, the older generation really don't tell us they flaws.
No, absolutely not. You don't know about them. You don't know about them, bro. Like, legit. We never truly know an individual until we have an in-depth conversation like this. Yeah. I promise you. Like, we view our parents as our parents, but not truly understanding that the life that we've lived, they had a life as well. Yeah. At one point, my mom will be 44 this year. At one point, she was 26, like I am. That's true. Right? At one point, she was 18. She was 15. So, like, we don't know about these experiences that they've had during that time period. And oftentimes, people don't share those things because they don't want you to view them in a certain light. Yeah. But at that point, the relationship can never be at its highest peak because there's no transparency. Mm-hmm. Or you never have an individual that's willing to ask the tough questions, right? To really identify and draw out of them what they really need to know. Because I had a conversation with my dad, and for everyone listening, if you want to hear more about the relationship with him, you can go back to the first episode when my wife and I talk about what that impact of not having him in my life had on me. But we had a conversation last year at Gates Barbecue, and I was just able to learn more about him, but in the same fashion, I learned about myself, because who we are, right, is a culmination of our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, etc. So I wanted to touch on you talking about your uncle being there to let you know who you were and who you were not. Mm-hmm. That's so deep because your actual dad wasn't there, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. Right? That's the role of a father, to tell you who you are and who you are not, right? To affirm you, to let you know, like, hey, you were made in God's image. If your dad is missing, naturally you're going to go to the next man that you see even close to that. And luckily it was your uncle that you set a great example for you. But as a man, you still have to make the decision to say, hey, I'm actually going to follow what he's saying or go the other route. And as you stated, he told you to stay from over here, yeah. But sometimes you will still go over there. And when you go over there, you start to pick up on things that you really shouldn't be exposed to.
You can say that again.
Right? Yeah. So I really want to dissect this because you said at least 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago is when you started to do drugs. And we can go as deep as you want or surface level, but there may be someone listening right now that may be going through a challenging time, and maybe they're having thoughts being planted in their mind about doing drugs, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe it'll start off with, or maybe I'll smoke a cigarette, right? I've never smoked a cigarette before. And then maybe it's weed, and then maybe it's, some powder, like, yeah. Or shooting up. Yeah. Walk me through, not necessarily what drugs you were taking. If you want to share that, great. But like, yeah. Why did you turn to drugs? Because mm-hmm. everyone has a way of coping with things. Mm-hmm. It just looks different. Yeah. You know, so if you wouldn't mind sharing that, I would love for the Fill Your Cup family to hear what you have to say.
That is a great question, and I'm gonna definitely answer that. But it's kind of just going back to what you said about not having a father and everything. I met my dad twice,
Okay.
but I could tell he wasn't looking to build a relationship with me.
Oh wow.
And you know what? It wasn't. I love my mom because one thing I respect about my mom is she was never the type of woman that just sit up and just down talk men.
Yeah.
And if she did, she didn't do that in front of me.
That's a blessing.
She was always like, you know what, you want to go meet him? Then this who it is, and things like that. And so that's one thing I respect about my mom, just in case, it's people out there who feel like, all black women actually do stuff like that.
Right.
Which, I'm not going to get into that. But, but I respect my mom, a lot for doing that. But, man, that was a great question, what you said. And just processing it and just thinking about it. What's crazy was I smoked my first blunt at like 8 years old.
Yeah, second grader. Yeah, that's crazy.
And just because I was raised around drug addiction.
Right.
A lot of my family members either they did smoke weed or they dip sticks, or if anybody know what that is, but or basically wet.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and so I've been around all that. People heroin. I had one of my grandpas. He was actually addicted to heroin, and just seeing a lot of drug addiction, just growing up and walking to certain rooms that you're not supposed to walk in when you're young.
Yeah.
After a while, you start to. I mean, kids are very impressionable. You already know from 0 to 7 they getting programmed, and that's they developing who they're becoming. So from around that time, I seen a lot of this stuff when I was younger, and to a certain extent, if that's how you see everybody around you coping, everybody different because some people turn the other way.
Right.
I wasn't the one, because what I was feeling inside, I didn't really have order inside of myself.
Wow.
And so it was chaotic because growing up in a house full of women, a lot of, you gotta, as a young man, I feel like you truly do. I mean, you do need your father there, to actually help you when it comes to, your emotional state, because when you're in a home full of women,
yeah.
That's
all it is. Yeah, that's all it is.
And you never actually, develop like your logical side. You just kind of more in your emotional state because you're trying to protect yourself from whatever they going through. That they actually indirectly, kind of putting on you or projecting on you that they don't even see that they doing. But and I was just giving a little context of why I started drugs. But I started smoking weed in high school. When I graduated and I got into college, and I didn't feel like I had a purpose. I didn't know who I was. I didn't feel like I had an identity, so I would just smoke all the time, just to try to distract myself from what was going on. I had some puppy love going on, and a young lady I was dating, she, excuse me, I thought that was the one, I thought we were going to run off, and, but I got my heart broke when I realized that, that she wasn't.
Yeah.
And I started just to do drugs. Started with weed. Then I did acid. And then I started doing pills. Mm-hmm. And I came back home from college. And when I came back home from college, I actually got around, some of the people my uncle told me don't get around. And, one day, it was just some lines put out. And I thought it was just weed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It wasn't like weed at all. It was, cocaine, man, and that stuff is serious. It's no joke at all. I didn't even realize that I was addicted to it until 3-4 years in.
Wow.
And for real, like I wasn't even realizing
That's crazy.
It's serious.
So really quick, you talk about not realizing that you were addicted until 3 to 4 years in. Like, what was that realization? Was it just like you being oblivious and you just do it, and maybe you're telling yourself like, oh, I'm not addicted, so you keep doing it? Like, help us understand what that was.
I wasn't even paying attention to I wasn't self-aware at all. It made me feel good. It made me feel better. Wow. It took my mind off the pain. And so I was more focused on, getting that high than I was anything else. I wasn't focusing on what I was doing, how I was hurting my family, them seeing me go through this. I wasn't focused on none of that. Like, I was kind of taken out of reality. I wasn't here on earth.
Yeah.
What's crazy was that what really got me was one day I was washing cars and I was working with this guy, and he was on drugs too. He was like, hey man, like come on man, like where can I find some, and so I'm just like, oh man, I'm like, come on, let's go we can get something together, knowing that if I bring somebody, somebody else, I would get a little bit more for
right.
referral fee. Nah, but man, the guy took me to his house one day. And it really messed me up, bro. But he took me to his house, and him and his girl was addicted, and they had like 3 kids. And when I stepped in, bro, I mean the house was trash. The lady, she wasn't really taking good care of herself, or and the kids, they were just so excited, like they were being kids.
Yeah.
But like they don't even I know they seeing what's going on, but they don't really know what's going on. And that really kind of hurted me a little bit, because I'm like, dang, like, this man right here is spending majority of all his money on these drugs, because he spent a lot of money, and look where they living at. Look how their lifestyle is.
Yeah.
Like, this man is, you know what I mean? Like, he not even really focusing on his family. He just worried about getting high. And that messed me up, because I'm just like, dang, like, this is going to mess these kids up.
Was there a part of you at that moment when you walked in, did you see yourself in those children?
I did. I really did, because I've seen, my family members on drugs, and
yeah.
I know what that feeling is, especially when you come to a realization that they on drugs. It hurt, because you like, dang, this ain't the person I thought they were, and I know that feeling, and it really hurted me, because I'm like, dang, like, me taking this man over here, I'm basically causing the pain that I've felt growing up, and I felt kind of guilty, and I didn't even think about that till years later, because I was still getting, I used to be up for 4 or 5 days at a time, like
with no sleep.
No sleep.
No way.
What?
No sleep.
No sleep.
Like not even nodding off for a nap.
No sleep. I was trying my best. That stuff
Wow.
is serious. That stuff is serious. Like
Wow.
I'd be up for a week straight, like high, bro.
Wow.
So much drugs in my system, and one day I got so hot. One day I thought I was about to die. Like I got in the shower, took a cold shower, because I thought I was about to die, bro. Because my body was just like on fire.
And at that point, when you felt this heating sensation, were you actively doing drugs at that moment?
Yeah,
you were doing drugs at that moment, and you had a reaction to it. So you go and hop and take a cold shower. What transpired after that?
Nothing. I was still high. I was nervous. I was scared. I used to, because I've OD'd a couple times. Thank God that I'm still here.
Amen.
But I was scared, because I was like, dang, like, it was kind of just that situation where I was kind of disappointed in myself. But the power of the high was so strong that, you know what I mean. I was like, I gotta do something, but I'm still stuck right now. I don't know what the other side look like.
Yeah. I love that, and I want to pause in this moment to really acknowledge you, man, and just first off, when we say never judge a book by its cover, if you guys would be able to see this man that's sitting in front of me right now, and you'd be able to know, like, he is really transformed and he's changed, and you would have never known that he was addicted to drugs by looking at him. So If I have any words of advice to people, it's to be your truest, authentic self, because that's the most valuable gift that you have. If there's anybody that's listening to this currently that are currently doing drugs, this is not to bash you guys, or if you guys are thinking of doing drugs, I really hope Nick painted a picture for you all, because he definitely did for myself, of what that experience was like, what that led to. He talked about himself overdosing multiple times, right? And I would love to even hit on that a little bit more too. Like, what was the experience like overdosing? Because I've never had a legit conversation with somebody that has lived that, because drugs and alcohol wasn't my path. I thank God for blessing me with the wherewithal to know that wasn't for me, because just like you, I had aunties and uncles that were doing wet, and cousins. Like, I knew a certain side of my family was on that, and the whole family knew, right? And it's unfortunate, like that they experience these things, and that you had to experience that, because as you were speaking, God was just telling me to share with everyone under the sound of my voice that that's not your truest self, right? That's a false version of you. You know, that's low vibrations, right? Yeah. And I could talk all day about that, but I would love if you wouldn't mind expounding upon the overdose, the overdoses that you've experienced, and maybe specifically the last one, and maybe what that experience did for you, and maybe why you didn't change after the first experience of overdosing. Like, why did you still continue to do drugs after the first overdose? And after the last one, why was that the last one?
That's a great question. And just going back to the part about, you know, not being emotionally stable. 9 times out of 10, majority of people who do drugs have deep emotional wounds that they haven't dealt with.
Wow.
And that was my situation. I had a lot of deep emotional wounds and traumatic experiences, you know, that I never dealt with. Like, you know, just being younger in the city and everything. Just as a young man, I've seen somebody lose their life right in front of me.
Wow.
And that messed me up. You know, I like just really not even knowing how to process that, knowing how to, you know, at a young age, and then the person that you standing with, they end up losing their life, you know, a year or two later from the same type of scenario. And it just stuff like that, just it traumatized me to a certain extent, to where and I'm processing the question. I'm definitely gonna get back to it, but you know,
it was deep.
stuff like that. You know, a lot of people don't know how to deal with, how to, you know, process that, and how to move forward on in life after seeing stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm definitely blessed and grateful to where I was able to overcome, because that takes a lot of willpower that a lot of people don't have. And but basically, I think the first time I overdosed, man, I was on Xanax. I took some Xanax, and that was around like 21, 22, and I was coming home from college, got some Xanax from somebody, and they were strong. And I was literally 6 minutes away from the house. I took 2 of them, and I woke up 15, 20 minutes away from the house in the woods, and I totaled my mom's car. Wow. They said I overdosed instantly when I took that's how strong the Xanax was.
So you were 6 minutes from the house.
6 minutes from the house. I took the pills, and I drove off. I was on 100 and something. I was off Bannister, and I ended up on 87th.
Wow.
I ended up on 87th by the police station. I mean, not by the police station, but off the highway headed to like where the police station is.
Right. Yeah.
I ended up overdosing, and I totaled my mom's car. Like, the car was wrapped around a tree.
Wow.
It was wrapped around the tree. They said the only reason why I survived that car crash is because my body was limp. So I was just bouncing around.
Wow.
In there.
No seatbelt.
No seatbelt. They said no, I don't remember if I had a seatbelt on. I apologize. Yeah. I don't remember if I had a seatbelt on. But I did hit my head, and I had a gash on my head. But they were just saying that if I wasn't high, and my body wasn't limp like that, and I stiffed up, I probably would have broke my neck or something.
Wow.
And so I woke up in the drunk tank the next day, and it was another time where it was a couple times, but that was like one of the biggest ones. But you know, I think the last one. Just to speak on the last one was the one where I actually was just like, it's time to change my life. I was in a bad mind state, bad emotional state, just everything. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just about to do as many drugs as possible. Right. I was drinking, I was doing a lot of cocaine and all that stuff. And I spent soon as Friday hit, when my check came, it was already gone.
Wow.
You know,
strictly to those things.
All to that.
Wow.
For real. And so basically one day I was on the bus stop. It was like 3 a.m. I didn't even go home. I was out and about in the world, you know, and I was sitting on the bus stop, and I was high as ever. I was scared. I was like, God, I promise you, man, if I don't want to do this no more. If you help me get through this, I promise you I will not turn back to this stuff ever again. And this wasn't my first time saying this, because, you know, the other couple times I was like, you know what? Hey, Thank you, God. You know, I'm gonna get back there.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
It was that bad. But
Wow.
this time I was really serious, and I looked up at the moon. It was a full moon, and I ain't gonna ever forget it. I looked up, and I said that, and I woke up in the hospital the next day. And when I woke up, I had 2 seizures because I got a little epileptic, you know. But I had 2 seizures when I was asleep, and I woke up, man. And when I woke up, I saw my grandma, my mom, my little cousin, and my sister. And when I seen the hurt on their face, that made me cause I got all these little things plugged up into me and everything, and you know, had to have a catheter and stuff like that, and that stuff hurt. If y'all ever had, that ain't no joke. That really changed my life. I was like, I ain't messing with this no more. But when I looked at them, that's when I started to finally realize, like, dang, I'm causing more hurt to them than I'm, you know, fixing myself. You know, like, I'm causing them more hurt than I'm hurting myself. And that right there was just like, you know what, I'm gonna leave this alone. I did it a couple more times, not that many, but after that, it was just like, man, this played out. This ain't cool. I gotta change my life, cause, you know, it's not a good that story don't end, you know, good if you keep going down that route.
1,000%.
You always think you got time, but shoot, you never know. I'm blessed, cause everybody ain't gonna get through that.
Blessed beyond measure, man, and I'm happy that you did make it through that. And as you stated, the car was wrapped around the tree. It gave me a visual of that really transpiring. And as you saying, your body was limp. I can just imagine you bouncing around the vehicle. But you made it out of that for a reason, you know. And if anybody that's listening right now has been in a situation similar, or you had something that was more horrific that transpired, and you're able to hear me and comprehend what I'm saying, that's the blessing within itself, right? The ability to process the words that I'm saying is the blessing within itself, because you could have easily been killed, right? You wouldn't be married right now.
Yeah, not at all.
You wouldn't be impacting the lives that you currently are right now, right? And I just appreciate you for being able to, not even being able, being willing to share that story, to be transparent, because when we have skeletons in our closets, it's a fearful feeling sometimes to share those things, because you don't know what people are going to think. And when we can truly break free from what another person says about us or thinks about us, that's true liberty, right? Yeah. So I know we touched on your uncle passing, the drug addiction. So let's skip forward a little bit and talk about, so like after you have overcome the drugs, where are you at in life at that point? Was there anything else that you say was a staple into shaping you into who you are now?
And you know what's crazy? Just you know, bringing up my wife. My wife, man, she is awesome. She is dope, and you know, she really stretches me as a man, and I'm learning a lot so much. But just growing up, I never really, I was never like the ladies' man. Like, I wasn't the guy that was, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't the heartbreaker, and I mean, not saying, you know, like that's cool or nothing, but I really didn't know how to communicate, like, with women and stuff like that. And that was one of my biggest things that I actually wanted to overcome and get through. But and I'm just being honest, because I feel like seeing certain things when you grow up in a single mother home, you kind of get a skewed perception of, you know, women. Right. And I always wanted to be married, and I'm married now, and it's the reason I'm saying this, but I really feel like since that day, God has been putting me in situations to where everybody that I come across is basically pulling something great out of me. Yeah. And it's stretching. It is. But at that moment, I was in a situation to where I cut everybody off. As far as the people I was hanging around, I cut them off. But now I'm kind of in purgatory. I'm kind of in limbo, like, because I don't have like the right people. Right. So I'm in a situation to where I'm kind of in that lonely period, trying to figure things out. And so You already know Keith, man. Keith reached out to me a couple a couple months later, like 6 months later, after the situation where I prayed and told him. 6 months later, he reached out to me as soon as COVID started. And and actually came into our life, man, and put us in a situation to where now we're actually around people who are doing big things. And you already know when it comes to mentorship who I'm speaking about. And that right there was the biggest change in my life, because I was in my mom's basement. I appreciate my mom because she could have kicked me out a long time ago. Yeah. For real. And I'm glad she did it, because I needed to go through that. And I'm glad she didn't just kick me out on the streets, because I don't know what that would entail. But basically, just getting back to your question, ever since then, my life has just been changing. I got around married couples, I'm sitting here talking to you, and built a relationship with you, and everybody that I've been around now has been elevating me to a whole nother level, whole nother viewpoint. And just my wife, man, she's a soldier as well too. Like, her mom had her at 15.
Wow.
And just seeing where she is today, and being married and just learning and growing, and never been in a real relationship and never seen like real marriages, it's challenging. It's challenging, but I'm so appreciative for the environment that we got and the people that we have, because now we can actually go and call somebody and get our cup filled,
yeah, absolutely.
And so, but it's a whole different situation. We got our own place, 2 cars and everything, and our situation is changing. That old lifestyle is in the past. I talk about it and I bring it up, but it's in the past. That's not who I am.
Yeah.
And it was a stage of time where I just had to learn not to be ashamed that I outgrew what some of the people I was hanging around are still, they still doing the same thing and they ain't looking to change.
Still doing it, man. And it takes a lot of maturity to realize that, but also to verbalize it, right? I believe when you speak things and you can hear yourself like actually speaking, there's a lot more power that comes with it versus just having the thought, right? And now you sitting here on my couch talking to me about these things, and you have other people that are listening. Maybe some people will know who you are, maybe some people won't, right? But there's a different level of accountability that comes with it now, right? True. That's why verbalizing things are so important. I once heard that people forget, paper remembers, right? We aren't writing this down, but the audio is going to live on forever, right? And one day when you guys decide to have children, they'll be able to hear this and hear a side of their dad's story that maybe they will never get to hear, right? Unless you're willing to come forward to them or they're asking. Because sometimes we forget certain things, or we just suppress them because it's not who we are anymore. Like you talked about, who you are today in this moment compared to who you were 10 years ago are 2 totally different human beings, right? And that's where the power lies. And that's a great transition into the next question that I have for you, man. Like, if you were to go back 10 years ago, and it's so crazy because 10 years ago you were on drugs at 20 years old, right?
Yes, sir.
If you could go back and give that version of yourself any perspective, any piece of advice, any wisdom that you've gained over the last 10 years, what would those things be?
And you know what's crazy? I appreciate you asking that, because shadow work has been one of the biggest things that I've been working on lately, and I know it's very important, to make that happen. And it's crazy that you say that, because I've been thinking about that question, and I think the biggest thing that I would say to myself is, you kind of already said it earlier. One, don't be afraid to be you. 2, you don't need the approval of others. I suffer with an approval addiction. I feel like I needed people to approve of me for me to have value. And I feel like that's where I actually, that's one of the places I went wrong. And another thing as well too is just really find your purpose. Don't be afraid to look at the wounds that you got, and don't look at them as a giant. Look at them as a challenge. You know, look at the challenges as something that, or those wounds as lessons. Okay, what can I learn from this wound? And once I learn it, how can I patch it up?
Yeah.
You know, like don't be so quick to go to what's easy. You know, actually fight through what's. I mean, you work out, bro. Like you already know, if you got to go through them hard workouts to get to the body and everything that you really want.
Absolutely.
So my biggest thing, man, was just you know, find mentorship. You know, find people who actually are in life where you want to be, and don't sabotage it. I went through situations where I was around a lot of good people who really wanted to invest in me, but I wasn't in a position to where I could receive that. And so I self-sabotaged a lot of certain situations that I wish, you know, I'm not going to say I regret, but I wish I would have done things a little bit differently, you know, and don't feel like you know it all, because you don't, you know. And so that was a big thing with me, you know, as far as just putting my pride to the side. And something I'm still, you know, working on today, like, when we talked about this, you know, at the gas station, where he was like, "Man, you know, it's crazy. You older than me, but you actually take time to like listen."
Yeah.
And that took work. Yeah, that took work. So that'll be my biggest thing, man. Is just actually, you know, everything that I just said, man, and be patient. Nothing happened overnight. I used to try to do things and feel like the next day I was supposed to blow up.
Yeah.
You know, and so just be patient and don't be afraid to be you.
That's beautiful, man. And at that age, you know, I believe everyone thinks that they know it all, right? They think that they have the world by storm. Patience, literally at that same age, when I was 19, 20 years old, I had to learn patience because I had a back injury that took me out of work for 8 months. And I ended up filing this claim, and there was a lot of different components involved, but there was 1 month where when I was on workman's comp that I didn't receive any pay. Any pay. I was a young single dad. I had an apartment to pay for. I had a vehicle to pay for. I have a baby to feed, right? At the time, I figured it out, and I'm grateful for that figuring it out mentality, like whatever it takes. And I believe you really don't know what you really are capable of until your back is against the wall, right? Yep. But when I didn't receive that pay, man, it changed my perspective on money. Like I didn't value it as much because someone else was essentially in control, or at least I thought they were, of my life at that point because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I say that because I had to be patient during that time. Right? And once that river overflowed from me being patient, the blessing started pouring in, to the point I started to work out, right? And once you started to work out, or when I worked out, it changed my mental, my physical, obviously. I didn't really understand the spiritual component at that time until I met people that was enlightened to that, right? But then I ended up receiving a lump sum of payment, which allowed me to pay cash for a vehicle. I didn't look back after that because I developed patience. So I'm glad that that's something that you would have told yourself at that point. And people that are listening that are, 20 years old, just realize that the way you think at 20 is not the same that you're going to think at 25, right? There's people that are 35 plus years old right now. I'm sure they can attest that they don't think the same as when they were 20. And if you do, my hope is that you learn to grow and expand your mind and expand what you think is actually feasible. So I appreciate you sharing the perspective that you would give yourself. And it spoke to me personally, right? It's a constant reminder of like patience is needed no matter what it is that you do. And also realizing that you are not in control, right? I heard a pastor say this after the Kansas City Chiefs parade shooting, right? He said, people always say that God is in control. God is in control. And I used to say that because I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, and he has our destiny planned out, right? And he's on the other side of the things that we can't see. But he says God is not a controlling God. God gives us free will, right? So when people say, oh, I was on drugs and this was God's destined plan for me, that's not the case. He was with you in that storm. That's why you were able to make it out, right? And he was pursuing you continuously, even though you were not pursuing him. But when you were ready, he was there to pull your hand up, right?
Yes.
So I love that, man. I would love for you to share any parting words that you may have for the audience, like anything that's on your spirit, anything that may have come to mind since we started recording. Like, what advice would you give to them that would just allow them to overflow, man, and really take action to be that next version of themselves?
And that's a great question. I appreciate that. I would say don't let fear keep you in the box. Don't let fear keep you from, the person that you actually need to be to impact the people that you actually need to impact. If Ricardo, let fear keep him in the box, he wouldn't, actually be building Fill Your Cup, which is going to be massive, especially, him just being a servant, man. He's going to get blessed tremendously for that. But don't let fear keep you in a box, and really pay attention to your family, and really study your lineage and where you came from, and learn the good and the bad, because for you to be able to start the change and really grow into the person that you need to be, you need to understand where you came from. And you need to understand the thought patterns and the habits and everything that you were taught indirectly, growing up. And basically challenge those belief systems. And if they don't, serve you, hey, well, move on, and, just restructure your, like he said, he worked out and he actually changed his thought process. Changing my mindset, changing, having a paradigm shift, really looking at myself in a different light, instead of just accepting what the world told me I should be like to be accepted or to feel like I got value. So that was one of the biggest things that really stood out to me. And just appreciate the people and love the people who love you. Mm-hmm. Don't fight hard to fit in with people who show you on a daily basis that they don't care about you.
Oh my gosh. What a word, man. And I'm glad that that's something that the audience can take and apply. Hopefully they apply it right, because if anything that we share is just pure entertainment, with no application, that's simply all it's going to be, is entertainment, right? And don't think that you guys have to take everything from this episode and apply it immediately. Do it incrementally, right? Do it in increments, Start with one small thing that you can add to your life. Don't worry about taking all the things out. Like, what can you add? And naturally, once you start to feel better and see yourself in a different light, you're going to, if you're in tune, your spirit is going to tell you, stay away from them. Mm. Because oftentimes it's the people that we are around that's keeping us boggled down. At the end of the day, it's personal accountability, but we are naturally influenced by the people that are around us.
That's true.
Whether we like it or not. What we give our attention to is what we're going to act upon. And then once we act upon those things, it's going to take over our lives. And I'll just leave it at that. But Nick, I would love if you would share with the people where they can potentially find you on social media, so that they can follow your story, your journey, and maybe even connect with you, ask you some more in-depth questions, and really it'll be an opportunity for you to fill those individuals' cups.
Okay. Yeah. So you can follow me on Facebook, Nick Williams. It's my wife and I got a blue suit on, and she actually has her locks and everything with glasses. So if you just need some context as far as the picture to look for, to friend me. But Instagram as well too. Just Nick 20, and it's NIKC. So JUSTNIKC 20, and you can follow me on Instagram. And yeah, if you want to reach out, have any questions, just want to dialogue, I definitely wouldn't mind talking.
That's beautiful, man. Well, I appreciate you, bro. But before wrapping up the recording, I just want to let you know personally that I love that you're a student, and I tell you this every time I see you, man, because you're so engaged in the conversation, right? You're locked in. You're listening to understand versus listening to respond, so that you're able to process exactly what's being shared with you. And to see you now at this moment compared to when you and I first met now a couple of years ago, the transformation has been miraculous to see.
Yeah.
You know, and I can tell that you're really working on yourself behind closed doors. And I also want to share this with you guys. That's the most important thing. You know, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, true liberty is when you stop worrying about what other people think about you, right? Now, there's people in your life that you're going to care about what they think about you no matter what. You know, if I put on a certain outfit, you know, I want to know, does my wife like this or not? You know, and sometimes we go back and forth, but either way, man, that's where freedom lies. That's where freedom lies. And I appreciate you for opening yourself up enough to become free. And there's still different parts of you that I'm sure you're still working on and figuring out. And that's the beautiful thing about life. And that's God's grace to us, you know, giving us every single day to grow and change and become a better version of ourselves. So I love you, man. I appreciate you for coming on. I'm sure we're going to have to do a follow-up episode down the road just to see, like, hey, where is Nick 12 months from now?
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And then at that point, we can bring your wife just so that she can see the transformation and speak from her viewpoint of where y'all were when y'all first got married to where you are now.
She got a lot to say about that. Yeah.
You know, and make it shake from there. Well, the Fear Cup family, follow Nick along his journey. Share anything that you guys feel impacted you from this episode, and we'll see you next week. Let's go.